Hello everybody, Prowl here, and I have some crazy information for you guys here today. You may know that some new blocks and things just came out in the new Minecraft preview slash beta. I not only have just the basic news information for you about this, but I figured out the mechanics and how it works and how to very quickly and efficiently farm it. And I want to share all of those things with you. So do not go anywhere. These farms are insane. But first, let's talk about what we have here. No, it's not spiders, it's not zombies, it's the creaking. This is the new mob that's being added in the new Pale Garden update. You may know about it, you may not. And basically, I'm not going to go over every detail of what this guy is and how he works, but just so you know a few basic things in terms of the creaking. It can spawn naturally whenever a creaking heart is between any of the pale oak blocks, whether it be player placed or it just naturally spawns that way. And it works with all of the blocks. I could put this guy here. You see he appears. I can kill him. He has a cool new animation. Oh, I want you to like hear it one time because it sounds so amazing. Oh my God, it's the best thing Minecraft's ever done. It does work between all types. It works between the six-sided logs and it works between the stripped logs. So all of these can do the creaking. Even if you place them vertically or horizontally, the creaking can spawn horizontally as well, as long as the creaking heart, which is the block that spawns the creaking, is in line with the logs. It goes the same direction as the logs do. Now, something new was recently added. If I come and punch this guy a couple times, he's going to send a little signal here, some little particles over to his heart over there. And this new item appears and it's called Resin. Resin appears whenever the creaking gets hit by the player. He has to be hit by the player. It will send over a signal to the heart and tell it to make this resin. Now we'll go over farming the resin here in a little bit, but what is the resin? What can you use it for? Well, 9 resin will craft a block of resin. A block of resin does nothing. Like you can't craft it into anything else. It's just a block of resin. That's what it is. The block or the resin clumps can be smelted though, and when you smelt them in a furnace, a regular furnace, not a blast furnace, not a smoker, a regular furnace, you get resin bricks. In case you're wondering, smelting clumps of resin will get you 0.7 XP per resin smelted. That is one of the highest, I repeat, one of the highest returns of XP of any item except for netherite ingots, diamond, and maybe gold. I can't remember gold, but it's right up there. It's like 3rd or 4th place. It's insane. Not only that, it's the easiest item, I think, to get in the game in quantity without a whole lot of effort to get you anywhere near this much XP. 100%. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But once you get the resin bricks, 4 resin bricks will make a resin brick block. And that resin brick block you can craft into walls, slabs, stairs, and chiseled resin bricks. You could do this via the crafting table, or you can do it via the stone cutter. Both of those work. You can also use it as a new color for armor trims. It's like a bright orange color. It's much brighter than copper is. Copper is a lot more dull of a color. So nice bright orange that you can put on your armor trim as well. I actually quite like it. It's kind of cool. Finally, when it comes to the creaking heart, you can now craft the creaking heart as well. It is now renewable. If you put a pale oak log at the bottom and the top of your crafting table and a block of resin in the middle, you will get yourself a creaking heart. The creaking heart crafted works exactly the same as a naturally found creaking heart. So you can use a crafted creaking heart to generate or spawn in creaking. This is going to probably be important for making your creaking farm. Now, before we move on, did you know that I have merch? Meet the Hide and Seek Warden product line. My live streams sometimes ask me to draw things in MS Paint. You guys wanted to see these drawings become merch, so together with you, I made the Hide and Seek Warden. This design isn't about me, it's about you wanting to express how much that you like Minecraft. So be sure to visit my store on my channel page here on YouTube and browse through all the amazing products I have available, and keep a lookout because there are more coming. So now, a moment ago, I showed you how hitting the creaking, the player hitting the creaking, it sends particles to the creaking heart, and it makes the resin grow on the wood or the block beside the creaking heart. In this case, I wanted to figure out how to farm that. So I had to figure out the mechanics of how it works. So we made a trident killer, which we have here on Bedrock Edition. We let it run for a little bit, and a pattern started to emerge. And there we go. It has finished spreading. I have noticed it'll appear here, but it counts as the edge of this block, but even though it'll visually appear over here. Anyways, you'll see it forms this cool like diamond-like pattern. And if you were paying attention to how it appears, it kind of like creeps outward. It can't just randomly appear anywhere. It starts from the heart and it works its way out. And yes, it does do it on both sides, not one side, both sides. In terms of obtaining it, you can punch it, you can use a tool on it, it doesn't matter. It just gives you a single resin. You can try to use fortune, it doesn't matter. You cannot rinse it off with water. Water does not break it when it flows down it. And finally, a piston will break it, or moving the block that it is on will break it. So for example here, if I flick this real quick, you'll see that right there broke it and sent it all down. Now, this is where we started on a farm before we figured out the mechanics. And this is exactly the pattern in which it will form. It will go in all directions in a octahedron-like shape in terms of generation. So it can go out 3 horizontally, vertically, and it will fill in this exact shape. Now, of course, making something the shape isn't really efficient because it's 3D and it would be really hard to farm, but just so you know, it will work in that general shape. Now, another thing that's going to be important when we talk about how to farm the creaking later on is the range in which the creaking can spawn from the heart. This is it. It can spawn 16 blocks vertically centered on the heart. I'm not sure where that odd number block gets taken off, the top or the bottom. So for the purposes here, we'll say 8 blocks up, 8 blocks down, and then 37 blocks horizontally, again, centered on the heart. And that would be 18 in each direction. And as far as I know, unless somebody can figure out and tell me different, I do think it is in a cubular shape. It is not a spherical shape. Knowing that and finding this out and seeing how it works, that led me over to a design more like this, where I had the creaking spawn inside of this box. We're going to talk about spawning here while we talk about this. And we did something more efficient. We figured we don't need all of these extra blocks here because it only like will spawn one or generate 1 or 2 resin at a time. And I've never in any of my testing seen it do like resin like this. Like I've never seen it go out like that. It always starts on these blocks. Every single time I've tested it, it always starts on those blocks. So knowing that told me that I don't need all of the other blocks. I just need these in terms of farming. And then we need to make sure we get this dude, the creaking, inside of our trident killer area. Now, remember, again, I told you that the creaking will send its little particles out and generate the resin when it is damaged by the player. You can't use a snowman, use a dispenser with arrows or something like that. I don't know if there's any other like clever methods that players can figure out, but the few that I've tried don't work. It takes direct damage from the player, which when you throw a trident down and let the pistons move the trident around in Minecraft Bedrock Edition, that does count as player damage, okay? So we ran a test like this where we knocked the creaking around and we tested doing the pistons every so often, and it worked pretty cool. It worked pretty good. You see, like, they don't generate all the time, but they do generate. Now, in the process of doing all this, I found out a couple of interesting things. First of all, whenever you place this, the creaking doesn't just magically appear. He doesn't just instantly pop up. Now in Java Edition, maybe he does because of how Java Edition spawning rules work. But on Bedrock Edition, he does not. What happens is the creaking will attempt spawning in all areas of this big cube shape that is his spawning zone, and it will either pass or fail the spawning attempt. So in this case, if you can imagine that centered over here, the creaking might try to spawn right here. The attempt would fail. The creaking can try to spawn over here. The attempt will fail. Eventually, the creaking attempts one of these 4 blocks. The spawning attempt succeeds and he appears. I don't know a full list of all the blocks the creaking can and cannot spawn on, but I do know he will not spawn on top of redstone dust. He will not spawn on glass. He will not spawn on bottom slabs, but he will spawn on top of hoppers or on top of pistons, at least on Bedrock Edition. He will not spawn on rails, I don't think. So I'm sure there's some kind of list that somebody will come up with at some point that will maybe best explain where the creaking does and does not spawn. But those are some of the things that I came up with. The realization of these additional things, let's see, there he finally appeared. He finally appeared, and we can hit him. Led me to another discovery that I just thought of, which is when the creaking will actually generate the resin. The resin does not have a chance of generating. Look, we got 2 that time. That's interesting. The resin does not have a chance of generating during the whole like particle exchange process. The resin only has a chance of generating at that initial tick right there. That one moment, the resin can generate. And you can't just spam hit him to make it generate more faster. It's only at the beginning of the animation in which he will generate the resin. So this led me to what I believe to be on the right track for the best type of farm for farming the creaking and his resin, which is something similar to this. This is a very rough initial concept of this type of farm, but here's what we got. First of all, the creaking will only spawn at night, and then when it turns day, he disappears. It is not based on light level at all. You can place torches all over the place. It doesn't matter. When it's nighttime, he spawns. When it's daytime, he disappears. It's that simple. So what you don't want to happen is it turn nighttime, and like 5 minutes later, he spawns in his chamber. So if you give him more potential spawning places to spawn into, he'll pretty much spawn right away. And I can demonstrate that here. I'll knock a lot of these out really quick, and you'll see that when I go through and replace them, that those creaking will replace themselves fairly quickly. There we go. See, they have plenty of places to attempt spawning, so they spawn in pretty quick. They will spawn in water. As you see, we move them over and we drop them into something like this, which is a trident killer. Now, why did I go with this trident killer design and move away from this trident killer design? There is a very specific reason that is very important, because when I try to stack more than one creaking in here, basically what happens is they stack on top of each other, meaning like they kind of merge together. And then when they do that, only one of them takes damage, and the additional hearts that you have set up will not get resin spreading on them. I tried slowing the trident killer down. I tried it with the roof, without a roof. I tried it with water, without water. No matter what I did, eventually they merged together into one, and it made it so the resin stopped generating on all of them. So that took me to this style of trident killer where we spread the creaking out and we can more easily hit all of them. Okay, now what's next? We have an Etho hopper clock here. Etho, if you see this, thank you for this design. It's so wonderful. Been using it for years. The Etho hopper clock is timing how frequently our tridents hit. Why is that important? Well, you saw when I showed you earlier that the creaking only talks to the heart every so often. You have zero reason to hit him more often than that. It does literally nothing. So I timed it out. It takes about 5 seconds between the animation starting and completely stopping. and I tried all of the different options for different amounts of items to put in the etho hopper clock here. And 14 items was the perfect amount. When I had 13 items, unfortunately, sometimes some of the creaking had not fully reset themselves. So 14 was the safe bet to go with. So ultimately, we'll probably come up with a much more efficient design than what we have here today. But this is a proof of concept. The proof of concept being you can have creaking hearts spread apart by this much. Probably wouldn't put them directly beside each other because then you have very limited surfaces for them to generate on. I think this is probably the most efficient method of doing it, where you have them spaced out, one space in between, one air gap in between, and you move via sticky pistons the logs just like this. You pulse it really quick. I guess it doesn't matter if you pulse it really quick. You just have to make sure it's in this shape whenever this hits, and then you just water flush all of the resin in just like this. And man, we have a lot of resin here. It comes in pretty quick, and you can scale this thing up extremely large, right? I don't know how many we could fit in the 18 by 18 horizontal and 8 by 8 vertical area, but it's got to be a lot, probably more than most people want to do. So ultimately, the really cool thing about this is you could pretty much make it whatever size you want to get as much of the resin as you want. It comes in pretty quick, as you can kind of see here. It's extremely fast. It's stupid fast. And then from here, you could do so much with it. You could run it through a crafter to make it into the resin block. You could automatically craft creaking hearts with it. You could run it into a whole bunch of furnaces, smelt it down into the resin bricks. At that point, you can then run it into a crafter to automatically craft it into the resin brick blocks. There's so many possibilities with the creaking heart and this creaking farm and the resin block that honestly, this is one of the coolest and most fun farms that I've built in a while. I don't even know if I'm going to use the block. I don't care if I'm going to use the block because it's pretty neat. I like this so much. And then let me just give like a big props to Mojang. Everybody was asking for a purpose for the creaking itself. This is it. This is a good purpose. Now I get to experience this dude. I'm going to see him all the time in my world when he comes out, because I'm going to make a farm out of him. Is it a little sad he's trapped in here with water and getting hit by tridents in the head? Sure. But ultimately, this is Minecraft, and that's what we do with mobs. So I appreciate you guys watching today. Hopefully you found this video informative. If you did, please click the like button on the video, subscribe to the channel for more great information. And once the creaking hits full production, I will be doing an optimized resin farm with crafters and all to share with you guys. So thanks so much. I appreciate you, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.